Okay, everybody. Good evening or good afternoon. I'm Leanne Fleischer with NOAA, and I'm happy y'all are here to join us. Just my little caveat. Want to let you know that you're being recorded because as you know, we put these in the member portal for future viewing, and also want to let everybody know that's listening that we are not going to have any Tiny Talks next week. We decided to go ahead and just give everyone the time off. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Sherry or Robin. Who's going to talk?
I'm not.
Sherry is our
It would be a
operations
Miss
manager.
Robin.
And Robin, as you know, is our CEO and founder. And we'll let Sherry take the ball and run first. Thanks, everybody.
We really don't have that much to talk about today. We have been using our upgraded inspection software for the past week now. Hopefully everything is going as smoothly as we need it to and want it to. But if you have any ideas or if you've used the new software, please let us know how it worked out for you, if it was better than what we were prior to. But I'll see if Robin has anything he wants to add.
Well, let's talk about the software first. This new software, we're able to do live video and photos and that kind of thing. But eventually, I think we're going to have a little more usability. There's going to be a checklist that automatically does some things, and then it will automatically upload. We don't have to send emails out. Is that correct? I'm just trying to kind of get a feel for what the new software is capable of.
Jordan, are you on? So you can maybe talk about that? Must not be.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so it already does automatically upload. There's no reason to download and upload anymore like we used to. We don't have to match up session IDs with emails anymore to figure out what an inspection, like what VIN it was for.
Recording in progress.
There's location capabilities. So you can have the lat and long on every photo now, checklists. I think that's about it right now.
So lat and long means latitude and longitude. For those of you that don't know, it's got what do they call it? Geo capabilities. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Which is
a little easier to connect with as well.
Is it? Good. Yeah, with the geo capabilities, when we do let's say a foundation home that's going to be in one location, we can make sure that we are inspecting that particular home. It really doesn't help us a whole lot on the tiny houses on wheels built in a factory, because we still have to get the VIN number off of the tongue, but it will help us when we do, different things like as a private provider, a foundation home or air conditioning change outs or re-roofs or those types of things where the county requires or wants to make sure that you have your safeguards in place so that you can inspect, make sure you're inspecting the correct home.
It actually would help us, will help us with the tiny houses. Say, for instance, one of our builders has 2 tiny houses, and just throwing it out there, not that it happens, but if a builder decides that they want to try and go into another home that we think is still the same home we're inspecting, it does show that they moved locations through the process. So
wow, so it's that sensitive help. It can tell like within a few feet.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
It doesn't happen, or that we know of that it happens, but it has happened many times in the past. So at least now we can tell if that does happen.
Okay,
So,
all right. And
But
what
I-
about the checklist? That's not functional yet, or when will that be functional?
There's
Jordan,
currently there's two of them in there that Sherry sent me for a metal frame and a wood frame. So those are currently in there. I'll need the stage 1 checklist and
3E and 3P
yep,
and
and
4.
then 4 and 5 for insulation panel.
All right, I'll get those
All right.
over to you.
Well, what I'd like to do is if we can get a framing inspection, um, Sherry, if you could pull up the Byron inspection, I'd like to go over that while we have a few minutes online with everybody, kind of show them
Okay.
the difference between NFPA 1192 and the NOAA Plus standard. So that
Tony will be
Rich,
on shortly, he said.
okay. Well, Rich did that inspection, and it's nothing wrong with it per se. He can still have the seal from NFPA 1192. However, just really, Rich was really nice about it, but there were some things there that we would probably not let pass on it. So,
Yeah, well.
but that would be a good educational thing for us to take a look at. And then what I need is what I'd like to have is a good framing inspection that we did, maybe with the new software. If we can get a stage 2 done with the checklist and everything before before the first of the year, we can get one done. I'm going to send that over to Mo and Sam, and they can share it with everybody to show here's what Byron's look like, and here's what one that's close to IRC. I sent an email out to Tracy Baker to see if she might be able to, but haven't heard back from her. But she has
Okay.
one framed up that has headers and everything in it.
Do you want me to share my screen so that you can see
Yeah.
it here? Okay. Okay. So here's how it works. Here's what it looks like. These are all the pictures. It has the location. It has the date. So that's the pictures that we see.
So let's take a look at that picture. That's a good one. We'll just take a quick look at that one. First of all, can you see how large the hole is for the vent pipe on that? See how much of the the double 2x top plate is cut out of there because he's using a 2-inch, it looks like, vent pipe when he could be using an 1.5-inch vent pipe would be perfectly fine. Now, I don't know, just to let you know that there's a certain amount that you can cut out of a plate, and then you've weakened it to the point where it won't stand the pressure. And then also, there's no header. How that window looks like it's got to be at least 3 feet, maybe 2 foot by 3 foot, and he's just got one flat 2x4 running there, and then the double plates above that. That should have two 2x4s standing on edge with a 1/2-inch plywood in the middle, and it should have jacks underneath of it. There's no jacks. There's a double stud going up to the double top plate, but there's no jack underneath of what is supposed to be a header there. I would imagine that flat 2x4. So anyway, that's one thing. Let's take a look at let me see some other pictures there, and we can talk about them. All right. There might be a better picture. See if you can find a better picture of that loft framing. Something that's a little bit tighter in. Wait a minute. You had one. What was it? Go back to that one. All right. I
That
don't
one?
see it. I don't really see a good picture that tells what I wanted to see. Might have to go to the video for it, but go to one more. The one that was kind of like, keep going.
That's the last one of the loft.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought I saw one that had something in it. All right. There it is, that one. Let's look at that one. See, as you can see, they're using 2-inch by 2-inch, it looks like, tube steel for their loft floor. He is doing 24-inch on center studs. As you can see by the back here, you can't see from the angle, but those floor joists for the loft are 24 inches hard. And there's just a 2x4 scabbed onto the other 2x4. I call it scabbed on underneath of the underneath of that loft floor joist. And then this the one that's over the window, as you can see, there's no header over that window. And then there's a cripple underneath of the floor joist supporting that end of it, sitting on top of a 2x4, not a header, it's just a 2x4 that's on the top of that window. So this would, it probably is fine for an RV, but as far as a structure that would be want to be close to IRC or be habitable, those are a couple things that would not fly. As far as a building inspector doing, the building inspections on that. Let's see if there's anything else on this one that we can talk about. Let's look at his zip panel. He's doing a good job on the zip. Oh, that's a good one. Stop back, go back to there. You can see that he has an anchor bolt here, which is fine. It's a 1/2-inch anchor bolt, but he's using regular round washers on that anchor bolt, and they need to be 2-inch by 2-inch flat washers that are used on there. In other places, he's got these hold downs, which are fine. They're actually more overkill, but he doesn't have any straps or clips or anything on the studs, either top or bottom. The only thing he puts on there is the hold downs, and then he's got, if you can find something of the rafters, he does have an H2.5 on the rafters that ties the rafters down to the double top plate. Go back to some, I think you had a couple of rafter shots. Yeah, that first picture right there. Yeah, there you can see he has an H, no, that might be an H2.5. I think that might be. And it only nails to the top plate. It doesn't nail to the double top plate. They have one that's wider that would tie down to the double top plate. So just think about a wind event like a hurricane or a tornado, and it's going to rip that roof off. It's either going to rip the two plates apart, or it's going to rip the plate off of the stud. So when we're talking about, tying these things down, we want to start with the ridge and tie it all the way down to the ground. We can tie this tiny house down with augers and everything like a mobile home, but if it either doesn't have straps that go all the way over the entire home, or it doesn't have clips that tie it down to the frame, it's not going to do much good to have a clip up here and then nothing that would continue that uplift all the way down to the frame. So he does do a good job on the zip panels. He's got tape on every joint, so I commend him on that. Looks like his windows are taped properly when he installs his windows. Um, so anybody else that's looking at this, if you see anything that you have questions about, feel free to to raise your hand, because we're just kind of talking about what's going on with some of these units here. Is there another session that you can go to? I think there was 2 sessions here.
Yeah. Let me move. Let's see.
All right, on this one, you can see he has a glulam ridge beam. He actually has 2 by, I believe they're 2 by 7 I think Tracy uses 2 by 7 I'm not sure what he uses, but he's got 2 by 7 ridge beams, and then he's got a girder setting on top of the wall, the outside walls, and then he's got a cripple going up from the girder to the glulam beam. And what that does basically is it shortens the span of the beam. This is probably a 28 footer, and glulams, I think what Tracy said was the max they can span, the 2 by 7s doubled up like that, is 14 feet. So if you put this girder in underneath there, and the girder's sized correctly, which I don't know whether it is or not, but it could actually be larger if it needed to be, then your walls aren't going to spread out. Just imagine force being pushed down on the ridge, and without that girder in there, or without the ridge, the structural ridge in there, the walls would just spread out. They would just push out from a weight. So either you need some ceiling joists or rafter ties in there to keep them from spreading, or you need some kind of a girder and ridge beam set up like this here. He does have looks like joist hangers on his to the ridge beam. So I mean, he could easily put some SP2s on the top and SP1s on the bottom, and he could tie this thing down, get some 2-inch washers with the hold down clips. The only other thing that TrailerMade doesn't do is they don't put an anchor bolt on the 8-foot wall. I don't know whether you can see it there, but there's no anchor bolt on that 8-foot wall, and there we like them every 4 feet, and so there's a hold down on each corner at each side, and that's a non-bearing wall. But when we had one engineered, the engineer wanted an anchor bolt there in that 8-foot wall. So just trying to let you guys know what this one here looked like. Anybody else have any comments or questions on this build? If not, then can you go to the video? The second one, I think, was the one I wanted to look at. Second recording. I don't know whether you could speed it up to 1.5 speeds, but I usually go 1.5 speed. And you have to enable sound. You have to go back out, Sherry, and you're going to have to enable sound in order for us to hear the inspector. And if you can, I can just kind of talk it through.
Where is that at?
I think it's where your microphone is. Mute.
It's on the left when you click share screen.
Uh-huh.
You'll see it on the far left in the bottom, share sound.
Share sound. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, you're gonna have to go forward a little bit. There was a blank. There we go.
Can you hear me now, Brian?
I can. Are you able to hear me during your silence?
No, so I wasn't able to hear anything, not even the background noises either.
Okay.
Um,
And they're loud because I'm next to a highway.
yeah, and I can hear it when we're having audio. But so one thing that I picked up on, well, there's a couple things, but the one thing I wanted to mention was, so when we do our inspections, we require, and I didn't see it, and maybe I overlooked it, but on the gable ends on the front and rear, I didn't see any sill plate fasteners for those ends to the framing as well, or from the frame down to the chassis.
There are no sill plate fasteners.
Okay. Yeah, because that's one.
Because we just had the state people, we were talking about this. Because we have the zip that wraps up on it, it fastens them well.
So
But
you
I could
fasten the zip down to the chassis?
Not down to the chassis, no.
Okay.
How do you do that? Do you do straps?
Typically, yeah, we can see straps, or depending on the trailer, they can actually sink.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I hit the wrong button.
To the chassis, no.
Okay.
How do you do that? Do you do straps?
Typically, yeah, we can see straps, or depending on the trailer, they can actually sink in some lags there as well. It really
With the
depends on the
zip,
manufacturer.
With the way the zip is fastened to the trailer, it's not needed.
Yeah, even so though, we require it just for movement purposes. But yeah, I mean, that's here nor there. It's more of a discussion at this point.
Right.
And then the other thing that stood out on my end was, and I'm not trying to pick you apart, because you're.
Oh no, I like constructive criticism.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's I mean,
I welcome
you
it.
have a lot of blocking in there, which is fantastic. Headers. So like, I see that there's a double top plate, and then
Correct.
sometimes we have another plate below that. For any door and window opening, whether it's on a load bearing end or the gable, we would require an adequate size header over that as well.
Okay.
So yeah, like typically, like with a 4-foot opening, you can get away with a double 2x4 on the upright. And then
Our openings are only 36 inches.
Oh yeah, then you can definitely get away with a double 2x4.
Right.
And then the other question I had, so we have the ridge beam going down the center of the roof line. What is that ridge? What's the material of that?
It's a glue lamp,
It is glue lamp. Okay.
engineered glue lamp.
Okay. So do they spec it for this unit, for this?
No, they don't spec it for this unit.
Okay. Because typically we would either ask that it either be spec'd like for the length of the trailer, the roof load, or that you would have ridge straps or collar ties.
Well, we have strap across the top. Every other rafter has a strap
Oh, you do? Perfect. Okay.
over
Then that
the
would be-
zip.
Yeah. Okay, good. So then that would.
And also, if you note, there's a gird beam in the middle of the structure with a support going up to it. It's not necessary, but we do it because that way the walls cannot expand whatsoever, and the ridge beam could not droop, even though it's an engineered ridge beam.
Right. Okay.
Glue lamp.
And then one other thing, and it's hard to tell, so I can't say that it's there or not with the angle that we're looking at. So at the bottom of the windows, do we have a sill pan flashing?
We do not have a sill pan flashing. We have zip tape.
Okay, so that's just acting as your sill pan though. Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay, understood.
As prescribed by the window manufacturer.
Yep. That's perfect. Yep.
And the
Okay.
windows we use are Alpine windows.
Mhm.
They're the best built window in the whole country. They have the balloon you see. There's a capillary tube that goes into the window so they can expand and contract. So until they're at their resting place, they're left on. I have a friend who had 2 windows blow up over Vail Pass when she brought her home from Portland. If this home were to go to Florida, without those, the windows could implode. So this preserves the quality of the steel.
I'll definitely have to look that brand up. That's good information.
They're the best made window in the whole country. They're very expensive.
Alpine
This
windows.
window right here is around $500, and they're all
Wow.
awning windows. The best
Wow.
ceiling.
Yeah, that's impressive.
I have a tiny home I just built that I put $29,000 worth of wholesale cost windows in.
Woo-hoo.
29,000.
That's a doozy.
That's the amount. That's the cost of materials for the average home builder, tiny home builder.
Yikes. Wow,
All right,
yeah,
can you pause that, Sherry? Yeah, did anybody see anything that they want to call a question in that little first part that we did there? Did anybody catch? There were actually 2 things that I want to point out, but did anybody see? One thing was definitely glaring there. No?
Can you hear me?
All right.
Am I unmuted?
No, you're good.
Yeah, there you go, David.
Yeah, the supports for the loft, looks like they're just little like 1 foot or 2 foot pieces scabbed on. Shouldn't those be full length all the way down to the ground?
Good
Or is that
point.
okay?
No, David, that's a good point. Yeah. They should be, well, first of all, are the 2x2 tube steel, are they going to be sufficient? We don't know. I mean, we require 2x4s, 12 inches on center, or double 2x4s every 2 feet with pitch plates in it. But I mean, probably they're okay. But you're right. They, if you're going to put a floor for the loft, can you go rewind a little bit there and to where we can see those what he's talking about? Keep going back. Keep going back. Keep going back. Keep going. Oh, well, they had it right there. Maybe we have a better picture of that. Keep going back a little bit more. Keep going back. I think the other loft had a better picture of it.
Yeah, both lofts were the same. There you go. Oh, well, that's on the window.
Yeah. Well, that's good though. Go ahead and show that one there, Sherry. And then we can, well, you had it there too. So this is good. That's perfect. Perfect. So if you put your cursor right underneath those black things, you'll see there's a stud, but then there's just a scab, what David called a scab onto it. Whoops.
Well,
Move. It went all the way to the end. You were almost at the beginning. We were looking.
2 minutes and 1 second.
2 minutes and 1 second. Okay, there you go. No, not right. Not quite, but close. Come forward a little bit, maybe, or go. There you go. You just had it. Maybe it's 4 seconds. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, maybe it's before that. There, right there.
Oh, there you go.
2 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So then there's just a cripple right onto a window that has no header. You heard him talking about there wasn't a header over that window. So that to me really is a problem. There's two two of the floor joists are setting right on top of a 2x4 that is not a header for that, not sufficient for that span. So I mean, the stud's completely cut out of that area, because the window's put in. So yeah, that's a good catch. Go back a little bit more and let's see if we can. There's something else I wanted to point out. I want to see the whole loft, that other loft. Whoops, too far. I just see a black screen right now.
Any door and window opening, whether it's on load bearing end or the.
Do you see it now?
No, we see NOAA certified inspection trailer frames.
Can
Something.
see it.
I see
Oh, there
it,
you go.
Sherry.
Okay,
Now I-
there it is. Well, there we go. All right, now yeah, back up a little bit more. Hey, no, keep coming, keep going back. Keep going back. I want to see the other loft, not this loft. Keep going. Like the whole view of the loft. Whoop, too much. There, perfect. All right. What's wrong with that loft, guys? Anybody can tell? There's no egress window in it.
Yep.
Mhm.
Good one.
We need to make sure we let our build ones on. This is not a NOAA member, by the way.
Right, right.
Oh, so-
We would not let this fly.
Are you talking about me? Because I'm not a NOAA member at the moment.
Is this your home, David?
No, absolutely not. I know better than that.
Well, and the argument's going to be, oh, well, that's just a storage loft. Well, and the answer to that is, guys, at least this is the way we put it. If it's big enough for a bed, then, and if it's 35 square feet, by definition, it's a sleeping loft. So something that's 7 feet wide by 5 feet is 35 square feet, and that's what, 2, 4, it's at least 6 feet wide up there. So that would be considered a sleeping loft, and it should have an egress window in it. And it didn't have one on the other. You can't see the other side. If you back up just a hair, you'll see the other side. It didn't have an egress window in it either. Oops, maybe you can't see it, but but
Yeah, 'cause that's the-
either one had an egress window that I could
If
see.
you don't mind me asking, what do you do in that situation where he's already made it that far, and obviously doesn't pass inspection? What happens in that case?
He's got to put a window in. He's
Okay.
just framed up. He can put a window in.
What
Frame a
about those
window in there.
windows? The support or the header over the windows.
Well, in he's doing what's called NFPA 1192, a travel trailer. He's using that
Okay.
standard, and they don't require it in that particular standard. This one's getting inspected by a different third party, not NOAA, and they don't require that in there. But what happened was he was using it in Colorado as an example of, a home that they want to make into a home that people can live in full time. And it just wasn't a real good example of, close to IRC construction of a tiny home. So Nancy, you got a hand up?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering on those vertical 2-bys that are kind of cut into, is that something that you can fix without tearing the whole house down, or some way to sister it or reinforce it that would make it compliant?
Well, yeah. You want to go back to that photograph there, Sherry, and I can kind of point out what I would do. I mean, it can be repaired. Most anything can be repaired. The only thing that would be difficult would be those windows that are up in the other loft that are all the way up against the double top plate. It would be hard to get that. I mean, you have to take the window out, put a header in, cut the sheathing out below. All three of those windows would be difficult to do. And the one on the other side, or the two on the other side, one on the other side would be difficult to do. But
He doesn't
yeah,
even have it on his door.
no, in NFPA 1192, you do not have to have headers over anything 4 feet wide or less. Now, stop right there, Sherry. There's one more thing I wanted to point out. See this vertical black 2-inch by 2-inch tube steel there?
72nd.
I think he's trying to support that open area of the loft with that.
It was built for the.
And my question is, how is that supported on that roof rafter? What's holding it up there? And is the roof rafter design sufficient enough? Is it strong enough to support whatever portion of the loft there that he's asking for that to support? So
But what's it sitting on?
it's not sitting on anything.
It's just hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah, it's hanging from the ceiling and then either bolted or welded to the 2x2 steel that's on, that is part of the loft floor system. So anyway, that's what we're dealing with there. Now he could, depending upon what his stairs would look like, he could engineer something that would be like a stair carriage that could support some weight, which would help out. Or he could put a post underneath of it. I mean, it looks like he's going to have a ladder or something built in there. If he could build something that's structural underneath of it, that would be fine. And then, where he scabbed on to the 2x4, if he could just run a 2x4 all the way down to the bottom plate, that would be better than what he's got there. He's relying on the sheer strength of the nails or screws that he used for that little 16-inch piece of 2x4. Whereas if he puts a 2x4 all the way down to the bottom plate, now the 2x4 is supporting that floor joist. All right. Thank you, Sherry.
That was interesting. So I have a question. If that was going to be a NOAA certified house, would the inspector mention that about the egress window in the framing inspection?
Yeah,
You
Rich brought it out.
Right? That's the best time to do it, right? Just wondering. Hope that wasn't a dumb question.
But it's
Everything
kind of
Rich questioned would be what our inspector would ask one of our builders is to show him what he could not see. When Rich said, I may have just missed it, he would have him zoom in on it or explain to him that, they need to add those straps and that it is
Gotcha.
part of the NOAA Plus standard. So
Rich was very nice about that.
Yeah, he was. He definitely has a little more tact than I do, but the other, what it does for us guys is it says, hey, we're doing a pretty good job of making sure that, when you compare to one that doesn't have all of the safeguards and, life safety and type stuff and structural that we put into it. And it's kind of fun to go and compare, apples to oranges there, but well, guys, do we have any more questions? If not, we those of you that that came on, Leanne wanted to make an announcement about next week. And so those that came on late, and are we going to send out an email, Leanne, regarding that?
We should.
Yeah.
Nancy Miller says, thank you. But I had a question. I was all excited. You're welcome. Yeah, we can send an email.
Okay, perfect.
Is that it? Nobody
Well,
has any questions, comments, concerns?
Just remember that as of January 1, the new standards that we have been discussing this past month will go into effect as of January 1. So
do we have plans review on that new standards, or is that not there yet?
no, we did not. That's not there yet.
Okay. If they're going to do IRC, they need to have plans review done.
Yes.
So if we're still doing ENC or 1192, we can get by with it.
Yeah. Are you looking at Catherine's question, Robin?
Yeah. Well, and I lost it. Let me pull it up.
Read
again.
it.
She's
ahead,
asking
read it.
if we've had inspected any shed buildings as ADUs.
Well, unfortunately, a shed cannot be an ADU in most places. Sheds are not built to IRC, and they're not on wheels, so we can't use the RV standards. And if it is not on wheels, then it would have to be built as an ADU. It would have to be built to whatever the local building code, Florida building code, California building code, that kind of a thing. So unfortunately, we can't do it, but we have done it. There are people that do take sheds and convert them. They're either in areas that don't require building codes or building inspections, or they do it under the radar. But that's the way that plays out.
And Catherine, I've also been told, and Robin can double check me on this, that they don't use the grade of lumber that we require for the standards that we do inspect to. Is that
that
not?
is correct?
Yeah.
They use number 3, and IRC requires number 2 or better.
Okay. So
They use number
all
3
of these
lumber.
the he sheds and she sheds that you see on Facebook and stuff like that, those are to be stayed away from then.
Well, I mean, he shed or she shed that's used as a crafts, place or something. I guess, the local building department wouldn't have any problem with that. It's when you turn it into a home, a habitable space, a dwelling, and you're going to have, somebody living in it. That's where you're going to have your problems.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much. I was just curious. I was asked that the other day, and I knew you guys would have the answer.
Well, we try, but we don't have all the answers. Don't hold us to that. We try our best.
Phil wants to know why we're not requiring the high pot test anymore.
Because we're moving more in the direction of IRC and dwellings, and in the inspection process that we use, we do what's called a stage 3 or a 3E, which is a rough electric inspection. And so when you're building a home, you don't have to do a dielectric test. And that's because there's a rough inspection. And so we were going in that direction. Mainly, the other reason was people were not doing the test correctly, and they were damaging the wires rather than doing a proper test. You're supposed to leave it on there for 1 second, and they leave it on there for 60 seconds, 1,000 volts running through the unit. So we made the decision that because of those 2 items, that we do a rough electric and we're having trouble with DIYers, especially doing a bad job of doing that test, that we're trying to eliminate that. Now, if it comes back on us where here's where we're going to have our problems, guys. It does say in ANSI and in NFPA 1192, that's one of the tests that is required. So we're sticking our neck out by saying we're not going to require that, and there may be some pushback. And if there is, we'll just reinstitute it. But we're going to try to take the high ground here, realizing that, you know, we are going over and above by inspecting each and every unit and doing the rough electric. In the normal RV world, not every unit's looked at by an inspector, and so the high pot test or the dielectric test would catch any issues that, or not any issues, but most of the issues, the shorts that might be in the walls. And that's if it's done properly. And so, you know, our thinking is how many manufacturers, you know, fill out the form but really don't do the test, you know. There's really no way to police that. We're really relying on the manufacturer to do a good job. All we require is the form filled out saying he did it and these were the results. So that's why we did it, Philip. It may come back to bite us in the butt, but hopefully we can do a good job with our inspections of rough electric to make sure that there's no issues with the wires, with the staples being too tight, you know, cutting the wires and shorting them out or something like that. So that's where you would probably catch a short if you did something like that, or if you didn't put a kick plate over the stud and then you put a nail or a screw into the wire, you know, that could cause a problem too. So anyway, yeah, you can certainly do that and send in those reports if you want. And if you, you know, you're probably smart by doing that because it could come back and bite us, you know, somewhere along the line. But if you want to continue to do that test and send in that report, we'll put it in the file and keep going with that.
Yep. Because we still do get them, and I always send them to an inspector when we receive them so that they can let me know whether they're approved or not approved. So you would still get that if you want to continue to send them in. I was just holding certificates sometimes before I would send a certificate out on a completed unit because we were waiting on the dielectric. So.
Right. By the way,
Think we're
Phil,
good.
I featured you yesterday on my social media. I read on Auto Evolution, your house was featured, the McKinley. Great job. It's really pretty.
Okay, oh, thanks. I didn't realize that.
I know not everyone gets on social media, but I like to feature my builders when I can. So anyway, anybody else got any other questions or comments? Merry
Absolutely.
Christmas. Thanks, Catherine. All right, guys. Well, I made an announcement at the beginning that we're not going to have our Tiny Talks next week. We had one person cancel. We don't have Wednesday. So we decided to give everyone the week off. You guys can take a break from our exciting Tiny Talks, and I will see you January 2nd, right? Yes, January 2nd. So we won't have any Tiny Talks next week. You guys can go spend all the money you got for Christmas in your stocking, and we'll see you on Monday, January 2nd. Anything else?
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Merry
Christmas,
Christmas,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Bye.